What you see here is what my software development kit from Ostium's GitHub looks like in the browser. And if you've seen any of my trade recaps or screenshots, you'll see it overlaid on the chart. The whole purpose of it is to emulate the user experience of having an integrated broker within TradingView, where most of the annotations you see in the back, these are automated. I coded them in PineScript. I can't have that in Ostium.apps front end, so that's why I prefer to execute from here. And basically, I'm just trying to keep my eyes on the chart and stay focused on reading price. Most importantly, the my implementation of the software development kit, it's tailored to my trading model, which of course is a rules-based system to engage the markets. Remember, I'm not a gambler, I'm a trader. Don't conflate the two. Those are two different things. And also, the software development kit is also tailored to the nuances of Ostium as an exchange, because each exchange has its, differences. But I experienced this same issue on Friday for like the first time. In the past, if there's any delays, it was, not that bad, or I could just get away with trying to refresh my connection and that would mitigate it. But I was experiencing the same issues as this from the SDK side as other folks were from the front end. So that was a frustrating trading experience, because if you're trying to trade at a key level or at a key time, and the order's not going through, it's like, oh my god, I'm missing the move. It looks like, oh, subgraph is the issue. I'm not sure what subgraph is, so if someone can enlighten me, that'd be helpful. But anyway, yesterday, Sunday, today's Monday, May 19th, by the way. Last night, I was sort of stress testing during Asia to see if there are still delays, if I could mitigate it or adjust my code somehow. Everything seemed to go fine until there were a few market entries I was making on mainnet for Bitcoin. One of them took 8 minutes, another one took 7 minutes to go through, similar amount of time just to close. But I did the same actions through Ostium's front end. I didn't have those delays. It was instant. It seemed instantaneous, like it usually does. So I'm not sure if the front end is now ahead in terms of subgraph and the SDK is behind, or if it works differently than that. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, and the last major change I made to my SDK is the Skit Open Trade Metrics, which allows me to get the net P&L. Previously, I was trying to calculate it manually, and I was never exact. I was the closest I could get was within $1. But I've scaled up a few times since then, so I'm not sure if the discrepancy would go up with those changes. Speaking of scaling up, I've had to update my minimum exposure a few times. I think someone else asked this in Discord. I think it would be helpful if that were to go down. If y'all could post it in announcements, that would be helpful, because the way I found out there were higher minimum exposures is I got the Easter egg in the logs of my SDK output, finding out the hard way, I guess, why my order's not going through. So that was fun. But as far as so when I was testing, I was experiencing those delays again, and so what I did was to mitigate is moving forward. I'm only gonna have a maximum of 14 simultaneous orders. I'm showing you live Monday afternoon. It's 7:33 Eastern. This is basically the max amount of positions I have, 21. I'll scale that back to 14 because this function runs, it'll take about 90 seconds to run for, say, 21 open positions. And maybe it takes time, and that's why it says every so often. So previously I had it set to run once every 10 seconds. And the latest change I made was to get the open position information every 10 seconds except for the net P&L. So I'm just pulling that once every 90 seconds. And you could argue that's a lot worse than being slightly off and trying to manually calculate it, but it's just where it is right now. The end result is that now I don't seem to experience any delays with submitting, editing, or closing orders. But that being said, it's interesting that even when I was pulling the net P&L very frequently, I didn't seem to have any delays until late last week. So I don't know if anyone out there has any insight on what's going on in the back end, but if you do, please chime in. I would appreciate that. So, yeah, that's kind of like the approach I took to mitigate it. I wonder if anyone has any insight on if I can pull net P&L more frequently or faster in another way. I will leave it there and try to have a trade recap ready for you as we head into the 3-day Memorial Day weekend, folks. Peace.